From the Alvin and Rosalie Sarachek studio, PBS Kansas presents Ageless Enthusiasm. Coming up on this episode of Ageless Enthusiasm, we're talking to Jamel Halaparik about second chapters.
Right out of college, I started at our bureau out in Garden City. It was the one-man band, you know how carrying the camera, getting in front of it, shooting that, and then getting behind and watching it to see if it's okay.
And I also visit with former Sheriff Gary Steed, who after his retirement hit the ground running.
And we had a process to put all those together, and we put those together and made a face that resembled BTK, and it expanded all across my career.
I'm Mindy East. All that is coming up on this episode of Ageless Enthusiasm. Thank you for joining us on Ageless Enthusiasm. I'm your host, Mindy East, and tonight we're talking with Jamel Halaparik about second chapters.
Chapters, I like that,
I love it. Well, you know, a lot of things can change after 50, and I know you've been an anchor. You're very well recognized in our community. You were on camera with Cake, K-A-K-E, for 23 years?
23 years, yes. Isn't that something?
That is.
Right out of college, I started at our bureau out in Garden City. It was the one-man band, you know how carrying the camera, getting in front of it, shooting that, and then getting behind and watching it to see if it's okay.
Make sure there were no cows in the background.
Exactly, and there were. That was the story. But yeah, so I did that about 23 years.
Did you have a favorite story that you covered?
Oh my gosh, isn't that funny? My favorite story. You know, I used to do the MDA telethons with Larry Hatterberg, and they were the all-night Jerry Lewis telethons. And I just felt so fulfilled doing those telethons because you're really helping the patients. And he and we had such a great time. And we would stay up all night long, and we only got, I think, maybe 2 hours of sleep in the 24-hour process.
Wow.
Yeah, but we were constantly going live, and we were working with the families, and we were really trying to find a cure for that.
Sure. And when did those stop? I remember watching those. That was always a big deal.
It was a huge deal every year, and then it stopped just abruptly. About 10 years ago, maybe it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had done it about 15 years.
Is that when Jerry Lewis died?
No, he hadn't passed away yet.
Okay.
But they stopped it, and they didn't really say why. They just said they were going a different direction. You know how that goes.
Yes, oh yes. And speaking of different directions, you are now the Director of Public Relations for Visit Wichita.
Visit Wichita.
Yes, what a perfect fit. Tell us a little bit more about that.
You know what I do is I go on the local stations here, television and radio stations, and then I drive out regionally or to maybe Kansas City, Tulsa, Lincoln, those stations, Oklahoma City, and I hop on their noon segments or their morning show segments, and I promote Wichita and say why they need to pack up their family, take a quick road trip, and drive to Wichita because we have so many incredible attractions here.
We do.
And restaurants too, Mindy.
We do. And we've got a world-class zoo. We've got our Wind Surge team. If there was anything that you would like to see Wichita have, what would that be?
You know, I would say probably a bigger convention center.
Okay.
Just because sometimes we miss out on those conferences and those big meetings because they need more space. They need, you know, just a different building. But, so I would say that maybe if we could improve that, or maybe just do some expansion on Century 2 would be fantastic.
And the tourism industry for Wichita, what it brings into our community is in the billions.
Yes, I was so surprised when I started this job because I did not realize how much money tourism brought to Wichita, and it's $1.5 billion annually in economic impact. So that's incredible, and that's why it's so important we get these tournaments here and these big concerts and these festivals and all of that.
So what are some examples of the things that come to Wichita.
We are having bigger and bigger soccer tournaments because of Stryker Fields.
Okay.
That facility is fantastic. The Blake Shelton concerts because of Interest Bank Arena. We have skating, synchronized skating.
Don't we get bowling?
We get bowling now. Yes,
That was a big draw.
We had table tennis. We're getting all kinds of things now that you don't even think about. And just bringing those people in, because then they eat at our restaurants, they stay in our hotels,
shop.
they go to our restaurants. And the one thing too, Mindy, that I've kind of tried to do, and I like this, and I see you out and about, so I know you like to try new things. But you know how you kind of get in your bubble a little bit? Like, I'm a West Sider. So I kind of go to the same restaurants, my kids go to the school, you go to the same places. So with this job, I've really been challenging myself and other people to do something different, maybe 1 or 2 things a month. If that's a new coffee shop or a new restaurant or a new attraction, and just go try something different. And I love it. It's so fun.
Well, and we were out at Top Golf recently, and we didn't golf, but we just had a drink and just enjoyed that space.
That space, it's so fun. And chicken and pickle.
Oh, I love chicken and pickle.
I do too. You sit outside in the sun.
We go every week.
Do you go every week? What day do you go on?
We go every Saturday.
I think it's so important, especially at our age, because we're all going through things. And don't you feel like that the older we get? I mean, there are health problems, there are divorces, there are kid issues, teenage issues, all of that. And it's so incredible to have a group of girls who you can really be vulnerable with. And talk with. And a really good group of friends of mine, we meet every week, and we try to get together and we just talk about what's going on in our lives, and we pray for each other, and we have a prayer list, and things will pop up. And now we even have some with grandkids.
Yeah.
So we're praying for our teenagers, and then some have grandkids. But I think friendships are so important. And I think we lose that sometimes when our kids are little, because we're just so busy, and especially if we work. Right? And so now having a little more time where you can spend with them, it's essential.
I agree. Well, and like I mentioned, some bad things can happen after age 50. And so I think you really need to have all those relationships really in place. And you've experienced some loss. You lost your dad recently, and I've lost my dad, and that's
so
a hard loss,
isn't it? He was one of my best friends. I mean, he really was. He was just my guy that we laughed together. I mean, when I was sick, he was there for me, and it just kind of happened quickly there at the end, and it was heartbreaking. But I got to tell you, it was also so beautiful. And I know that sounds cliche, but I was there with him when he took his last breath, and he was home, and we had hospice care, and they are incredible, by the way. Hospice is amazing. But we were with him, and he was, I remember the pastor said, we were by his bed, and he said, Jamel, because I knew, see, now I'm going to cry. He said, Jamel, because my dad was still alive at the time, what would you like to say about your dad, and why was he so special to you? And I said, he was the sweetest man I've ever known. And he really was.
And I think our dads, that generation, it's just, they were so wonderful. That we had great dads. So
sorry.
Well, no, we're gonna.
And it is. And one thing too, when he was going through his thing, I was laying with him on his bed for a little while, just kind of cuddling him, and he said, "Man, aren't roles reversed right now?" Because I remember being, little and hurt or sick, and he would cuddle me, and I love that I was able to do that for him.
Absolutely. And no relationships this side of heaven are ever permanent. So I think when we get that opportunity to make it, to hold on to that, that's so important. And that has to carry us through until we get to see them again.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to take a quick little break and talk with someone Gary Steed.
Oh yeah, great.
And another familiar face in the community. And then we'll be right back. And my next guest is someone I'm sure you'll recognize. Former Sheriff Gary Steed is going to join me and tell us about Second Chapters. How are you today, Gary?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you were involved in Wichita. You had some very high visibility cases. Without going into too much detail, what was the one that you worked on that was your favorite?
Well, I don't know if you can have a favorite case, but the one that most people hear about and know about, of course, is BTK, our local serial killer.
Right.
I worked on that quite a bit in my career.
Well, and he's one of the most notorious serial killers of our lifetime.
He is, yes.
When did you first start working on BTK?
Well, clear back in the 70s when I was a very young detective, first on the department. I had become a detective very early, and one of the original projects or parts of that investigation I did, I had the opportunity to make a identikit picture of what BTK looked like. Now, I can't draw a straight line. I certainly can't draw a circle. But we had kits back then that had noses and ears and eyes and chins and lips. And we had a process to put all those together. And we put those together and made a face that resembled BTK.
Wow.
There were several artist conceptions. Many people who know about BTK may look back at the old papers and stuff and find the three of them in there. Mine is the one that looks most like a person. I think it's arguable whether it looks like BTK or not.
Well, how satisfying was it to finally be able to close that case after all those years?
Very gratifying. It was an interesting case. One of the things that people don't realize is when we were working on BTK, we were also working on the Green River Killer because we thought there might be a connection between Boeing and Seattle, Seattle, Washington. So I did follow up on that. Several times we would come up with various leads or tips that we would go investigate, and certainly we would do that.
So it spanned all across the country.
Yes, and it expanded all across my career. Of course, two of BTK's victims were victims who lived in Sedgwick County, not within the city of Wichita. They lived out in the county. And so we had firsthand investigation on those.
Wow.
Dolores Davis was BTK's last victim, and of course she lived out by Keachai. And
well, I'm sure it was a relief for everybody to know that you guys had finally gotten your man.
Yes, he had terrified the community for a long time, and it was certainly a relief for not just law enforcement, but for people in the community to know that that he had been captured.
Right. Now, after you retired from the force, then you did something in between.
I did. I had a second retirement. It was a very gratifying job.
Also involved in internal affairs, right?
Well, similar to internal affairs, I became the director of, and this is a mouthful, the Kansas Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training.
Okay.
But the short form of that, it was called Kansas Seapost, but we were the regulatory function for all of Kansas law enforcement. So I used to tell people when I was in law enforcement, I hunted people. When I became director of the post, I hunted police people.
Wow.
But it was very gratifying to investigate misconduct of law enforcement officers, but we didn't arrest them. What we did was revoke their licenses, take their certifications, so that they could no longer be law enforcement officers in Kansas.
Is there a lot of that going on?
When we first started, it's a little bit of a story. Perhaps we can take a moment, but when we first started, there were 2 or 3 officers being revoked per year. It's because the rules were not very good for doing that. When I became the director, we changed the rules. Before I was a director, you could revoke an officer for a moral character violation, a felony violation, or a domestic violation. Well, we had officers doing lots of misconduct that was not those items, so we changed the rules.
Redefined.
Yes, we changed the rules, changed the law. We said we can now revoke you just for the conduct. You don't have to actually be convicted of a felony. If you do the conduct, we can take your license. We added 54, 56 misdemeanors related to theft, using your position of power, assault, fraud, all of those types of items, and said we can now revoke you for that. And we added an oath to take care of the moral character part of that.
That's good. I think an oath, there's something to keep them on the up and up.
Yes.
Now, when you retired from your second career, you did hit the ground running.
I did. I've always been a runner, but I took it up more seriously. When I retired, I had planned on doing a marathon. I decided I might start with a half marathon. I've since decided a half marathon is plenty far.
That's it.
And
that's 13 miles.
Yes, 13. I've actually ran 15 miles at one time, 15 and a half.
Wow.
But I've done 16 half marathons, which are 13.4
Wow.
miles.
So a cumulative, how far have you run in your second chapter career?
Well, in my second
Second chapter.
You know, since about 2000, I've averaged about 600 to 700 miles per year.
Wow.
Last year I did almost 1,000. The most miles in a year I've ever done is 1,085, I think.
Wow. And you run with your daughter sometimes, right?
Well,
she a runner too?
we used to run together a lot, and then she got serious, and she got faster than me, and she went and got a running coach.
Oh.
And now she's faster and she can run longer. But I still usually run more miles than she does. And I've done more half marathons than she does also.
Now, how tough was it on her to have her dad be the sheriff?
You know, I don't think it was too tough.
How about the guys she dated?
One little story was that one time when she was going to be picked up for prom, when her date came to pick her up, I asked to see his driver's license. And when he handed me his driver's license, I gave him my business card and said, if you get in trouble tonight, have the officers just call that number.
Oh, goodness, touche. And then did you give him back his license or did you keep it?
When he brought her home, we traded the business card and the driver's license back.
Gosh, what a cute story.
Yes.
That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Great way to keep your daughter safe and intact.
Yes.
And present it back home.
Yes, and of course I have 2 boys now, or also at the time. I don't recall them having much problems. I remember that all of their friends came and helped me with my campaigns when I ran for sheriff, and I still occasionally see a Steed for Sheriff t-shirt at the YMCA.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So, well, they were smart kids to get on your good side.
Well, I hope so. So I'm mostly all good side.
I know you are. I know you are. People don't realize that you have a human side to you.
Very much so.
Yes. And you've got your grandfather now too, right?
I am. I have 3 grandkids. My daughter's kids, the runners' kids. They're 2, 4, and 8. My wife reminded me of that because she said you were going to ask me that.
Yes.
So I run with them now also. I push them a lot in strollers.
Oh, gosh.
And my 8-year-old grandson is amazingly fast. He beats me in 5Ks when I run 5Ks.
Wow.
He ran the very first one with me. I told him to stay right beside me. He did exactly that. He ran the whole thing, never slowed down. And ever since then, he's run off and left me. Occasionally, we leapfrog. I pass him when he gets tired, and then he passes me.
Yeah.
He always catches me at the end.
That's cute. What a great way to involve your family and your next generation coming on.
Yeah.
So, Gary, what's coming up after this? Do you have a 3rd chapter?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of nice being a grandpa. I'm enjoying great health, I think, because of my running.
Absolutely.
I like to golf. I have a lot of golfing to do. I would love to break 80 one of these days. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we're going to see.
Good goals. Well, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you stopping by, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me, Mindy.
Thank you. And now we're back again with Jamel. And Jamel, I found a little clip of you recently.
Oh boy.
That I think we all can relate to. Can you share with us what was going on?
Yes, this was a moment. You know how that goes. Okay, I had a dress on that day, of course, and sometimes I wear pants, but of course that day I had to have a dress on. I was leaving a radio station, just talking away, and you know what? That darn sidewalk had a little bit of a ledge on it, and I just stepped off that and kapow, you see what happens? And all I could think of, Mindy, was, I do not want my undies to show. So quickly put my legs together.
You did. I gave you a 10 because you kept your legs together.
Yeah. Oh,
you weren't hurt.
No, I wasn't hurt. But everything goes flying. You know how that is. I'm thinking, I'm so embarrassed. And then I look up and right there's the security camera.
Of course. Well, you know, that's a great example of not taking ourselves too seriously in life.
That's right.
And I've heard, you know, those things that don't kill us, make us want to eat a cookie.
That's right.
So,
or make you laugh all day. I could not stop laughing.
And you even said that your dad would have gotten a big kick out of that.
He would have been the first person I called and then he would want me to reenact it like 20 times. But it was, it happens so fast and you're so embarrassed, but then you're like, what do you do?
I know. What do you do? It's just life.
Exactly.
All those things happen to us. So
yes.
We're not the only ones that have embarrassing things. Other people have those too. But at least you recovered gracefully. And
the thing of it is cameras are everywhere. So we do not get away with anything anymore. So I knew when that happened, there's got to be a camera somewhere.
So Jamil, you have 3 children. Mine are a little older than yours. How was it to balance work and children, and which you still are?
You know what? I think once they get older, it's a little bit easier. When they start driving, even though you're so nervous when they're driving, but they can get to and from. But I did the morning show in television for 18 years. So I was going to work at about 3 in the morning, getting up at 2. I'd work and then I'd get home and I was always battling fatigue. And that's one thing I've noticed now with this job, having more regular hours. I'm not battling that fatigue much. But I love going to all my kids' stuff, as you know, just as yours are. They're your world. I mean, you do anything for them. But I think really to balance it, when you're at work, you've got to work. And when you're home, you got to be home. And help.
Be present.
I think help too. Be present. Be intentional. You're right.
Right. And how old are your children now?
Okay, so Steele is 20. He's about to graduate from college.
Oh my.
And then Shay is a senior in high school, and then Stratton is a freshman in high school.
So you're still in the mix.
They're busy with school stuff. My youngest plays sports, all of that.
And you were a sports girl too.
Yeah, I did.
Played sports in high school.
I played in high school, and then I played in college. I played volleyball and basketball in college.
So I'm sure you've watched Caitlin Clark.
Oh my gosh, I love her, don't you? Isn't she amazing?
Think about the wonderful gains she's doing for just young women all over the country.
For women's sports. I was reading where they said that was the highest rated ESPN sports event. And it was women's. And you know what I love too? Where I was out watching the game, the whole place was cheering for a women's basketball game.
I know.
And you never used to see that ever. Guys barely even knew who were playing in the girls tournament. So it's incredible.
And I went to high school with Lynette Woodard. And
she
even showed up. Yes, she was at one of the games when she broke the record.
Oh my gosh, what was she like?
Oh, tall.
Tall?
She's, very sweet.
That's
very sweet
incredible.
But yes, I know. Wichita has a lot of amazing people, a lot of talent. And a lot of great things going on.
And a lot of, sports athletes, but also entrepreneurs too.
Yes.
That's one thing we are known for, which is fabulous. And I love going out and sharing those stories as well about our community.
I bet. And I like the fact that you can get involved and you can sit back and watch. And Wichita just has enough to offer anybody.
Absolutely.
So it's just whatever you want to do, you can jump in or you can sit back.
And I think you got to go out and find it. Like we were saying earlier, go out and really look what's out there. Go to the new coffee shops, because I think that's so fun, going to coffee shops, don't you? Like Grow and Larcher's and different places.
I like Mocha's.
Mocha's, yes. And you go and you just relax, have coffee with your friends, and then go out to maybe a new brewery or restaurant. It's a good time.
And concerts and all kinds of fun things. Yes.
Attractions.
Yes, fun stuff.
We've got it.
Well, I love Wichita.
Yes, I do too. We have that in common.
We do. Well, and then we have our festivals, like the Chili Festival.
Yeah.
That's a fun, that's a fun event. Our River Festival is a great opportunity for people to come in. Plus, we have a lot of neat restaurants and little tiny, like you said, little quaint places to shop and eat.
Yeah, and so, I think it's fun for people who live outside of Wichita to load up your kiddos, pack the van full, come for a weekend, stay, and you can have a great time and you don't have to spend a fortune.
And we just got Shields.
Shields,
and
yes.
I mentioned Top Golf and Chicken and Pickle. So those are all fun attractions.
Absolutely. And film stations. Have you been out there?
No.
The Dinosaur Museum. It's incredible. They have 40 life-size dinosaurs, so they're huge.
Wow.
And you can go out there. It's kind of near Derby, between Wichita and Derby.
Sure.
And you can go over there and you can play T-Rex games. They have hide and seek, miniature golf, and it has all the dinosaurs. So that's a blast for kiddos too.
Well, Jamil, thank you for sharing with us, because there's no reason why we all can't be enthusiastic about living here in Wichita.
That's right. It's a great city.
At whatever age we're in. So thank you for being my guest.
You bet.
And thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Ageless Enthusiasm.